Alas, that these evil days should be mine.
This is the lament of a broken king who feels that he has failed everyone who has put their trust in him. In reality, it's a sad song that every father will sing at some point in their life. But how this broken king rises and becomes unbreakable offers a template for despairing fathers, the kings of their families, to do the same. If we're going to truly appreciate Theoden's lessons, we need to first examine another broken ruler of men. Denethor, like Theoden, is a ruler of men, but unlike Theoden, he's a steward, not a king. He serves as a placeholder until the rightful king returns. This is a subtle foreshadowing about the nature and character of Denethor.
You must go. Bring me back this mighty gift.
He's a substitute leader, one whose rule comes from a comfortable palace, who mistakes control for power, whose reign is cold, self-serving, and calculated. He views himself as the victim of his son's actions.
Always you cast a poor reflection on me.
That is not my intent.
And wields comparison and cruelty to get what he wants. Similarly today, men can fall into the trap of the steward by viewing their families through the magnifying glass of pride and vanity, allowing problems to be solved become more important than people to be loved, who are quick to take credit for successes and nowhere to be found in failure. While these fathers manipulate others to achieve their purposes, their families notice and become bitter and resentful. We see this reflected on the faces of the sons, and their controlling father rushes to the celebration to take credit for their hard-won victory.
Oh, one moment of peace can he not give us that?
Where is he? Where is Gondor's finest? Where is my firstborn?
Father!
While outwardly, the steward may gain their service and obedience, inwardly, he doesn't gain their hearts.
I have seen more than you know.
In the books, we learn that Denethor used the Palantir, a dark seeing stone that Sauron wielded to corrupt Saruman. What this steward of men didn't realize is that Sauron was playing him. The Dark Lord wasn't able to corrupt Denethor, but he was able to skew his perception of reality.
Who now has the strength to stand against the armies of Isengard and Mordor?
Showing him half-truths and accentuating the size and scope of his army, leaving Denethor in a heightened state of paranoia and fear.
Sauron is biding his time. He's massing fresh armies. He will return, and when he does, we will be powerless to stop him.
Studies show that, like Tolkien's Palantir, social media can warp our perception of reality through filter bubbles, echo chambers, selective sharing of idealized lives, the spread of misinformation, and the promotion of unrealistic standards, ultimately leading to a similar state of anxiety, depression, paranoia, and a skewed view of society.
You still have friends. You are not alone in this fight.
The almost angelic figure of Gandalf the White approaches Denethor in an effort to call him out of his psychological mire of grief and imagined destruction and into the real world of responsibility and duty. Gandalf's words urge him to prepare his army and to call for help to fight off the dark forces that would soon be at his doorstep.
War is coming. The enemy is on your doorstep. As steward, you are charged with the defense of this city. Where are Gondor's armies?
Trusting the Palantir's visions more than reality, this placeholder king mistakes friends for foes. His vain fear of losing power reinforces his dark victim mentality, drives him to reject not only Gandalf's counsel, but also his responsibilities as steward.
Rule of Gondor is mine, and no others.
His refusal to embrace his duty and get out into the real world causes him to slide further into a damaging echo chamber of madness, which is evidenced by him sending his only remaining son to face an almost certain death on a mission to reclaim Osgiliath. By pursuing the prideful path of the steward, Denethor had driven away friends and connections who he could have leaned on for support. Studies show social isolation can affect nearly every aspect of your mental health and can be linked with greater levels of stress, greater difficulty paying attention and doing complex tasks, and thoughts of self-harm and destructive attempts.
The line has ended!
Upon receiving news that his son had seemingly died, Denethor's heart sinks to a new low. This placeholder king viewed himself as a victim of his time and had destroyed the guardrails of family, faith, and duty that could have kept him sheltered during the storm. His madness leads him to ignore the fact that Faramir isn't dead.
He's alive.
The House of Stewards has failed.
And as he begins to bemoan his loss, he is almost immediately met with the overwhelming forces of darkness at his doorstep. This was the last straw for Denethor. Addled by the Palantir, blinded by grief, and isolated from counsel, he listened to his fears and led his men into ruin.
Abandon your post! Flee! Flee for your lives!
Shortly afterwards, his madness peaks, and he dies a fearful, fiery death.
So passes Denethor, son of Ecthelion.
Unlike Denethor, Theoden is a true king. Beloved by his people and battle-tested in their service, he had warded off the forces of evil for years.
Your men, my lord, will follow you to whatever end.
But like Denethor, we meet Theoden as a frail and broken king. The main culprit is his toxic right-hand man, Grima Wormtongue.
That is a lie. Saruman the White has ever been our friend and ally.
Who administers subtle poisons which cause Theoden to age prematurely. Grima accentuates Theoden's doubts and fears, making him psychologically and physically weak.
Your words are poison.
In reality, there's more than just magic to this phenomenon. Studies have shown that people in toxic relationships add approximately 1.2 years of age for every calendar year. Theoden's focus on his shortcomings incapacitate him as a leader, allowing the forces of darkness to destroy his kingdom. Be it a toxic relationship with a friend or family member, a passion, a pleasure, or even a career, fathers today may find themselves mired in situations that destabilize their well-being, debilitate their ability to serve, and destroy their family. I'm reminded of the psalm that says, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, but his delight is the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night." Evil doesn't always strike from outside. Sometimes it whispers from the shadows within your own camp. So the first lesson is, guard your mind. Gandalf the White represented the divine call of duty. This is subtly reinforced by the white color scheme worn by Éowyn, Theoden's niece, which stands in stark contrast to the dark colors worn by Grima. In religious texts and storytelling, white is often used to describe the garments of the righteous and symbolizes holiness. White is also used to represent new beginnings, or a clean slate, while black clothing symbolizes wickedness, evil, and darkness. In other words, the absence of light. This is a visual story that's being told in the scene, foreshadowing the past that lay at Theoden's feet and where they will lead him if he gives them his attention. When the divine call of duty came, Theoden was in a mental state not unlike Denethor's. Broken and weak from the psychological warfare of Grima and Saruman, Theoden couldn't even speak for himself. Gandalf, sensing a greater strength beneath the surface, called Theoden out from his slumber.
Too long have you sat in the shadows.
In the movie, it appears that Gandalf freed Theoden, but the books make it clear that Theoden recognized Gandalf and allowed himself to be set free by the wizard. He woke up from his stagnation and chose to shake off the psychological chains that had destroyed his people during his absence. The moment he embraces his duty, his transformation begins, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Studies show that for men struggling with depression or anxiety, engaging in meaningful duty can lead to powerful mental and physical healing, including improved mood, reduced isolation, enhanced self-esteem, and a sense of purpose, while also promoting physical activity and social interaction. Notice how his once clouded eyes clear up and brighten once he embraces his duty. It not only restores his strength, but also allows him to see past his own perceived weaknesses into reality.
I know your face.
Unlike Denethor, Theoden's choice to rise to the challenge of kingship allowed him to see the bleakness of his situation and take preventative measures before the enemy was at his doorstep. The people of Rohan can surely attest to the scripture found in Proverbs, "Without a vision, the people perish." Notice how Theoden also uses his newfound vision to recognize Wormtongue for the toxic person that he really was. He acts quickly to literally cast out the toxic influences in his life and replaces them with a support system of men who he can lean on for strength, guidance, and counsel. Studies show that strong male friendships significantly benefit mental health by providing emotional support, reducing stress and isolation, and fostering a sense of belonging and purpose, leading to improved well-being and resilience. Like Denethor, Theoden also lost his son. However, it's important to call out the weight of his duty gave him the strength and clarity to grieve his son's death without being swallowed by despair. This is represented in the scene where Theoden is grieving at his son's grave. We clearly see Gandalf, Divine Call of Duty, notices the travel-worn children of Rohan, who had just fled their destroyed village, seeking the protection of the king.
Yes. Yes.
The broken king hasn't fully healed yet. Though his mind is clear, his heart still falters. Like Denethor, he still sees himself as a victim of his time. He takes counsel from his fears and leads his people to what he believes is their safest option.
By order of the king, the city must empty. We make for the refuge of Helm's Deep.
Despite the fact that the forte of his people was in the horse and plain warfare, revealing that while he can now see clearly, he still struggles to forgive and trust himself.
Theoden is walking into a trap. He thinks he's leading them to safety. What they will get is a massacre.
Like Denethor, this king of men faces overwhelming forces of darkness at his doorstep. Preparing for battle, his fear is evident. He goes through an identity crisis, revealing that his self-doubt is still in control.
Who am I, Gamling? Where is the horse and the rider?
You are our king, sire.
And do you trust your king?
As the enemy breaches his fortress, despair sets in.
What can men do against such reckless hate?
Unlike Denethor, whose desperation led him into an echo chamber, Theoden had surrounded himself with true friends who shared his burdens, but not his mindset. In this moment of incredible darkness, his new right-hand counselor, Aragorn, mentions a key phrase that reaches Theoden's heart and transforms him.
Ride out with me. Ride out and meet them.
In that split second, it seems that Theoden learns the lesson Gandalf taught another hero in the dark mines of Moria.
I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened.
So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. There are other forces at work in this world, Frodo, besides the will of evil. Bilbo was meant to find the ring, in which case you also were meant to have it. And that is an encouraging thought.
Theoden realizes that the battlefield wasn't just from the stone walls of Helm's Deep, but also within the fleshy chambers of his heart. And this time, he would not retreat back to the toxic shadows of his fears and doubts.
The horn of Helm Hammerhand shall sound in the deep. One last time. Yes!
Instead of dwelling on his failures, defeat, and weaknesses, Theoden reframes his trials as a divine gift. He has found the horse and the rider. He has rediscovered his identity. He wasn't a broken king destined to fail. He is the exact man that his people need at that very moment. So the answer to his earlier lament is a resounding yes. These evil days should be yours, because you are precisely what is needed to overcome them. Like Horatius, the Roman captain of old, of who was written, "And now cried brave Horatius, the captain of the gate, to every man upon this earth death cometh soon or late. And how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods?" Theoden now views himself no longer as a victim of his time, but as its master, and lifts his heart. He was immediately filled with the courage and confidence to abandon not his duty and not himself, but the very fears and doubts that had plagued him since he had risen to his calling. Studies show that rumination, or dwelling on your doubts and fears, is the #1 predictor for depression. Not ruminating on those doubts and fears offers significant mental health benefits, including reduced anxiety, improved emotional regulation, and enhanced problem-solving abilities. By breaking the cycle of negative thought, individuals can experience relief from stress, depression, and other mental health challenges. Acting as a veritable Moses of Middle-earth, Theoden stood firm, determined to do his best with the remaining time given him by divine hands. His fearless charge causes the forces of darkness to seemingly split before him, and he learned firsthand the truth that divine callings come with divine aid. He held off the forces of darkness long enough for the seemingly angelic legions of men from on high to ride to his aid and miraculously save his people. This reinforces the teaching learned in Isaiah. "Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. We also read in Hebrews, Cast not away therefore your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward. For ye have need of patience, that after ye have done the will of God, ye might receive the promise. In lifting his heart, Theoden didn't just survive the storm, he changed the tide. And so too can fathers, when they lift up their hearts and fight until divine help comes.
Gun knuckles for 8! And Rohan will answer. Muster the Rohirrim!
Theoden had every right to abandon Gondor. Denethor was nowhere to be found when the forces of darkness were at his doors. But the righteous king understood something deeper, that when you are strong, you strengthen your brethren. In beautiful symmetry, Theoden's seemingly divine arrival saves Gandalf, which may represent the fact that the men of Gondor were about to abandon their posts. This divine timing is subtly hinted at by the rising sun behind Theoden's troops, a source of light and hope, and one of the very signs that gave Theoden hope in Helm's Deep.
The sun is rising.
Studies show that service is one of the most powerful remedies for depression and despair. Giving lifts our spirits, reduces stress, and floods the brain with feel-good chemicals, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. The once broken king is now unbreakable.
I fear no darkness!
And as he stares into the faces of his terrified men, he teaches them the very lesson he wrought from the depths of Helm's Deep. Ours is not the duty to lament our days, mentally escape our trials, and check out, but to master our fears and make the most of the time that we've been given in service to others.
A sword day! A red day! And the sun rises!
That shift from fear to faith steeled their hearts. As they charge into battle, they cry the one word that reveals their total devotion to the cause. Leading a now fearless and unbreakable army, Theoden's charge strikes fear into the very hearts of the forces of darkness, which teaches a powerful truth, that when fathers rally around the battle cry of faith, hope, and duty, the very gates of hell shake before them. But Theoden's service isn't just about the people he's leading into battle. It's a payment on the debt he owes to his fathers. By giving his all in service to his people, he preserved their spirit for generations to come.
I will kill you if you touch him.
It reminds me of the psalm that reads, One generation shall commend your works to another, and shall declare your mighty acts. As he prepares to pass into the next world, he utters a line that seals the arc of redemption.
I go to my fathers, in whose mighty company I shall not now feel ashamed.
Theoden teaches us that brokenness is not the end, that with clear eyes, faithful counsel, and a lifted heart, any man can rise again. This tale gives us a story of two rulers, a steward and a king, who faced the same storm and died in the same war. If fathers out there feel they have failed and are slumped, facing a black pit of despair and hopelessness, you can find the antidote in the path of the king. The morning will come, the sun will rise, the darkness will be swept away, and the forces of light will rally to your aid.